Hey, today I'm gonna give you a 60-hour review, kind of an initial review of this U48-5 Kubota Mini Excavator. I'm also going to, just like the title says, tell you why not to buy from Messick. Let's get started. Before I get into any of the details of the review, I thought I'd tell you just a little bit about what we're doing here with this end of the pond. Rex is bringing back some of the muck, some that's had time to dry out, but is still pretty much clay. It is the same muck that you see from right beside here. It just doesn't look blue anymore because it's dried out, it's had a chance to get air. We'll talk some more about that in a minute. But what we're doing is we're putting the bluest of the blue, the pure clay that I've dug out of the bottom of the pond, we're putting that to line the actual pond, and we're putting this muck that we kind of, it's probably got a mixture of stuff. It's not as pure. We're putting it right behind that. We have found some material that's pretty sandy actually, and I don't really want that loosely behind this kind of false levee I put in. And it's not really a levee, it's not really a dam, it's hard to call it that, but we're shortening the pond here, just not making it quite as long in this direction. It's going to be a little more rounded. It also gave me a place to put some of the excess dirt that we had, and I'm kind of over here helping level it and pack it down for a little while here. Rex is a little bit nervous on that tractor because sometimes the slope is unpredictable, right? It's kind of loose here, and the slope is really unpredictable. Yep, that's right. That's son of a gun Neil Messick put in some sort of an Easter egg in my new excavator such that every time I get in the stinking thing, it sings to me. Well, then of course, I can't get the jingle out of my mind the entire time I'm running in here. So, you know why he's done it. So that's my reason, and yeah, it's somewhat clickbait, I suppose, but that's my reason not to buy from Messick, because it's never telling what they're going to add to your machine. When I first figured out what was going on, that it was singing to me, I thought, that's got to be something can be disabled. So I went through every settings screen that I could find. I thought, why in the world would they put a feature like that on an excavator? And then, so I searched and searched and could find nothing, right? And then I set my head to email Neil and said, how do I turn this stupid song off? Well, about that time I saw the Instagram and later YouTube post where he confessed. So I'm singing the little Messick's tune all day long, and no, I haven't even tried to find it yet. I know it's under the seat somewhere. He showed that much. I'll get to it at some time, but I'm still frustrated. No, seriously, the Messick's experience has been wonderful. The second machine I bought off of Neil, and yeah, I can't complain at all. He's straightforward. What he says is what he means. He does not change his tune when the details come out. Oh yeah, sorry, that was an extra $10,000 or whatever. No, he doesn't do that. He shoots straight from day one, and I really appreciate it. It's just refreshing to work with a quality dealer like Messick. So yeah, that was clickbait. But hey, they kind of deserved it after the trick they pull on me like that, right? Maybe somebody will get that title and say, hey, what's going on with Messick? Anyway, 60-hour review. I've got 60.2 hours on the machine now, all of them on this pond. If you haven't seen the episode that Neil put together on his channel when we picked it up, I'd recommend you go check that out, because we talk a lot, in fact more detail there than what I've talked on our channel, about why we chose this excavator, the size, the style, pretty much everything about it. We talk a lot more there than I have here. Overall, I am incredibly impressed with the machine. Now, as I've said before, I'm not a Mini X expert. I've had a couple of different case machines, a 17, a tiny guy, and a 37, a not quite so tiny guy, both on the property, and now I've got this one, a 4.8 metric ton, basically 11,000, a little over 11.2, 11.3, something like that with the cab. So Neil mentioned that he doesn't sell many of the zero tail swing machines. I chose this one, as I said, because of the weight it had. I wanted the maximum weight that I could handle without a CDL. And I believe, according to my math, I found it. In fact, I need to test it. I hope I'm not a couple of 100 pounds over. I also wanted the 5th generation unit with the better cab. Cab features are important to me. Neil recommended the KXO40-4 because he thought the conventional tail swing would be a better option. But I didn't want the -4 cab. I wanted the -5 cab, partly so I could report on it to you guys, so I could let you know what I think of it, tell you some of a couple of things, both positive and negative. But the biggest positive is the spaciousness. Now, I'm not saying it's large, okay? Don't get me wrong. It is still a very small cab, but there's no way that you can get, well, I just can't imagine a way you can get much of a larger cab on this size machine. I find it very comfortable for most of the day, and then if I ran 10 hours the other day, and by that time my legs are longer than most, even for people my height. I have pretty long legs, and I found that they were getting sore by the end of the day. Just didn't have enough place to put my, so yeah, I have some issue with that, but I think overall it's really optimized the space well. I chose the air seat. As Neil said, I chose all the options. I decided I wanted to go first class. The controls, let's talk about those. Just incredibly smooth. Again, I don't know how it compares to other brands. I just know that I have pinpoint control. I feel like I am an excavator expert. And oftentimes that's not because of me. I think it's just because the controls on the machine work so well. Better than any tractor that I've operated. Right. That I can't think of a single tractor that's had such advanced controls. Of course, that's the point. I mean, these machines, that's where they spend their money, is to get the good electro-hydraulic controls. And I don't know the details on all the specs on that. I just know that these work wonderfully. I don't have any complaints at all. Neil thought that I wouldn't like the zero tail swing. He thought that I might find it a little light in the rear end, and so far I have not. I've been working oftentimes along those ledges over there, and I've been really happy to have the zero tail swing. Again, that was not my objective to buy it, but just at least in this first project, it's been very nimble, and I appreciate having it. If I get some heavy front attachment for it, I may, second guess at that point. If so, I'll let you know. Neil talked about the angle blade and how it stuck out a lot further forward than the straight blade. And he talked about that both from an advantage and a disadvantage perspective. And I get it. But I think the advantages are perhaps why I'm not minding the zero tail swing as much. With that blade way out front, when I put it down, it really plants the machine. And I feel like I can, lift whatever I might need to lift, however large a bucket, or pry on something. That blade is so far out there that it just does not move. The machine is fabulous in that sense. So I suppose along those same lines, I could talk to one, I don't think I can say weakness, I'm just going to say limitation of this size machine. Because of the zero tail swing, probably, I do notice that when I am trying to work on the side of the machine, I find that it's not, won't lift nearly as much, right? And at times, it's a little bit scary with the bucket out there, way off to the side. Typically, you can turn the machine a little bit and get enough of the blade facing where you want to go that it's not that big of a deal. But sometimes down in this pond, I've been in a scenario where I really just didn't feel like I could turn at all. So I have had to try to work off to the side. That's something just to be aware of, and I don't think that would matter about brand. I think that's physics, right? That's the way it's going to be. I've used the angle blade significantly. I would highly recommend it for its function itself. Neither of the case machines that I had before had angle blades. And even when I had them, I thought, hey, I really wish I could angle it a little bit. And I find that I'm using it a lot with this machine. Now, some of this dirt here is some of the more sandy. It's a little more yellow. You can kind of tell it that way. And then when you get close, you can kind of see the sand. So I'm going to put it further back. So Rex is bringing some of the more clay, the mucky stuff, and putting it closer to the actual water. And then this other sand I'm just putting back here. Obviously, we have enough muck. We could fill this whole area with muck. It's just a lot easier since we have some of this sand mixture back here. It's just easier to use it while we're going. Not moving dirt as far is a big help with the equipment that we have. I read a comment or two on Neil's video that said I would have to nitpick this machine to death and that he shouldn't sell it to me. Well, I'm telling you what, this is a very nice machine, but of course I will nitpick something, and again, that's just the way it is. It doesn't matter what color it is. I want purchasers to be able to understand even small disadvantages, right? You just got to kind of know it. The more you hear, the more you know, and then you can make your own decision. I want to talk about the air conditioner a little bit. Now, no, I'm not saying the air conditioner is bad. The air conditioner is actually great, and my understanding is it's improved over the prior generation. It keeps me cool. Last week when I was working here, it was nearly 100 degrees, high humidity, and this machine kept me cool. I did have to run the fan on high, but I did not feel at any moment that it wasn't cool enough. So what do I have to nitpick about? Well, the issue has to do with, again, the space limitations. At least that's my perspective on what's going on. All of the air conditioner vents are on the right side here. Essentially all of them are on the right side of the cab. And you notice that when it gets really hot, especially on my left leg as it rubs. I'll turn the camera down and let you see where my left leg rubs the hydraulics here, okay? And I can't keep it from rubbing there, which it doesn't hurt, it's not like it's bad, but this gets really hot, or at least pretty hot, right? And so after all day and 100 degrees, that is a bit bothersome. Okay, I know, some of you are saying, call me all kinds of names. But I feel like people want to know. People want to know those types of things, and a lot of reviewers just don't share that type of detail. Overall, there's no way that I would say don't get this machine because of the cooling system. Not at all. Talk about fuel usage. It's just sips fuel. I think I filled it up. I filled it up the third time just a few minutes ago. I've got 60 hours on it. It came pretty full. Maybe I should retract my negatives about Messick, right? Because they gave me a full tank of fuel. And so I appreciate that. It just doesn't use much fuel. And I've been running, a lot of people talk about you don't need to run your excavator full throttle, and you don't. But when I was doing some digging that wasn't very detailed, and I just wanted speed, I went ahead and ran it fairly high. For instance, right now, I'm not running very high now. I'm pretty close to idle now because I'm not, it's not that big of a deal. At 1600, I guess I'm running now. I've run at 18, 1900, and again, the controls are so smooth you can get away with it. So I don't have to worry about just, totally jerking the boom around all the time, even at those higher throttle speeds. So again, I'm really impressed with that. The machine notified me at, in the high 40s of hours. It says, you've got a service interval coming up, and I thought, oh great, a 50-hour service. What, I'm gonna have to change all the oils from right here in my pond project. I don't want to do this, but it said I needed to do the 50-hour service. So I got in the manual, looked to see what was in the manual, and there isn't much 50-hour service. It's pretty impressive. The only oil change that needs to be done, and I still haven't done it, that's right, is in the drive units on the tracks. So I think it takes less than a quart of oil on each side, and I need to get that changed. But it's a 50-hour change, and then only every 500 after that. So it's not like it's a frequent service item. It's just that first 50 hours, which is kind of odd that you'd have the first 50 and then 500 from there. So I told you we were trying to get just the dry part of this muck to use for the fill right now. The muddy part we just can't drive over and get packed down because it's just too wet. So I'm down here kind of scraping some of the top off. Now it doesn't have to be perfect because we can mix it in somewhat. So some of the dry clods can, you know, help to work together with some of the muck if I get a little bit of that in. But I just decided to climb the pile here. Why not? Heck, it's fun. I can pull some of this down then where Rex can reach it. This is a mixture of stuff, right? Some of it is the good blue clay that I want to use, and then I'll show you over here. You can actually see that there's some of that sand that I really wouldn't want to be using for the levee. So that's why I'm uncomfortable using it for the inside of the liner. But I think it's a pretty good mixture for the kind of the second backup layer of the liner. I just don't have enough of the blue probably to go around, so yeah, that's what we'll do. Makes me feel like king of the mountain up here. Such a mixture, it's hard to tell. And you know, it's hard to remember where it might have come from. I can remember major portions. For instance, I'll show you, I'll spin around here. This portion over here, right here under the bucket, came from the south end of the pond, and some of the early muck that I took off with the tractor. And so it's going to be pretty good, probably even some pretty good topsoil, because it's you know, was above even that yellow clay layer, yellow clay sand mixture layer that we're working on. It was very early on in the project, and the rest of this was taken out during the time that we had the 4 or 5 tractors here with Ken and Jeff and Rex, me. Is that all? Seemed like we might have had another one, but yeah, what a day or two we had there. That was a lot of fun. Okay, back to my review a little bit. Let's talk about the bucket. I've got 2 of these work brow buckets. This is the 3-footer with no teeth, called kind of a grading bucket, I guess would be the term. I haven't used the 2-footer yet because everything I've needed has, well, this bucket's been perfect for. So let me talk a little bit about the capacity. When I'm working in dry material, then this bucket is, well, I could probably use a little bit bigger one, right? Because I don't feel like, even when I'm fully stretched out, that I'm near capacity. But when I was in the really wet muck, this bucket was, you know, almost too much, really. So yeah, I think it's probably a good balance overall from a size standpoint. And I haven't needed the teeth, but maybe, I don't know, 5 minutes of the whole project. There's been a few times where I've had just a pretty hard surface that I was dealing with, but most of the time the smooth edge has been wonderful for this project. Well, I suppose this is going to seem like the craziest thing I've done on the whole project. This is all groundwater that's come up through here, and when I first put this blue around the edge, I just didn't have time to do the compaction. Well, I also didn't really have a mechanism because I couldn't reach it from that point with a tractor. There was just no way to really do any compaction. So now that it's drier, it's not going to compact as nice. So this is my life hack number 1 here, I guess, to see if I can improve that. Let's talk about visibility. I think the visibility on this machine is fabulous. The corner posts are not hindering my visibility hardly at all. They are apparently smaller than the prior cab version, and I really like it. Now, when I run the boom sideways, say to work right beside the edge of that wall, it works a lot better in one direction than it does the other. It doesn't work as well to run the boom to my right, where the engine compartment is kind of in the way of the visibility a little bit. But I would suspect most people can arrange their work so that they're typically working to the left, and then they wouldn't have that issue. And when you work to the left, you not only get a good visibility out the front, you can look out the side door, and it's, you know, it's just phenomenal visibility. So even in awkward, kind of tight situations, I find the visibility great. One more comment on visibility is the rear camera. I got the rear camera as an option. I like it. I like it a lot for a quick glance, but I must admit that it's got a kind of a fisheye lens, And the image is a little bit hard to interpret as far as, you know, how close you are to something. So, you know, it's vivid, it's in color, but the fisheye aspect just makes that a little more difficult than I thought it might be. One other aspect on the camera is you have to punch a button to get the camera to display on the display every time you start the engine, so it does not remember that setting. And I see no disadvantage to the camera displaying. The rest of the information on the display is still there. It's just a little bit smaller since the camera takes up a portion of the display. So I try to run with the camera on all the time, except when I forget. And I really find it nice. I wonder if I could bring up some of that muck that has been brewing in there since we flooded it with water and see what that looks like. Now see, that was hard as could be just the other day. I could hardly dig in it, but since the groundwater has come up in it, you can see what the muck looks like. It's still that same pure blue clay, but it softens up after water stands on it. No, I'm still hitting hard bottom where I guess, you know, it hasn't had a chance to soak through all of it. There's only a certain distance that it soaks through, and that's what I experienced in the initial clean out, was you could get down to hard clay at some point. I find all the greasing points, all the lubrication points to be easy to find. I didn't really even need the manual to figure out what all needed to be lubed. It was obvious on the machine. I did look at the manual to see if I missed anything, and I did not, because it was all exposed pretty obviously. So I was really impressed with that. So let's talk a little bit about the owner's manual. I found it to be easy to understand as far as the service intervals, what I needed to do on the service intervals. Just overall, so the manual so far has been great. I saw one thing that I almost missed: the gear lube for those rear gearboxes, because it wasn't listed where I expected it to be. It was under the 500-hour service rather than the 50-hour service. So there wasn't, you know, because it's typically done every 500 hours, but it is also a special case to be done on the 50 hours, as I mentioned. I think that about covers it for my initial review or initial introduction to this machine. To summarize, very happy with it. I don't know that I could be any happier. Of course, you always want a larger one, but I can't haul that on my truck. So there's nothing I can do about that. This machine's better than I ever dreamed of having. So I'm so thankful to be able to get it. Let's take a look at the pond, current status of it. I realize this video wasn't really about our pond project. It was more about the machine, but I thought maybe you'd like to see a current state. I'm getting much more comfortable with the soil types and where they are in the pond, what I need to be using, what I need to be discarding, all of that. This is some of that blue clay right here that I dug out of this hole right here. That's the groundwater level. So the groundwater has come up that high in those two holes, and actually this other hole over here. Just eyeballing it, I would say that I'm standing on about maybe 8 foot below the surface right now. So I guess it would be about 8 feet deep right here. But I expect that I'm going to dig this out. This is blue clay right under here, and I'm going to dig this out to do the liner on this side. I'll do the same thing on the other side. We're making great progress up there. Rex had to go home a little bit early, so we didn't quite get done up there, but we made a huge amount of progress up there today. I can't say we're in the home stretch yet because there's a lot left to do, but I feel like a lot of the unknowns are removed. Now there's still an unknown that I don't know what to do with about this groundwater. Should I try to seal it so that the groundwater doesn't come through, or should I allow it to come through? I don't know if I'm gonna see the pressure push and downward and actually prevent the pond from staying full, or if the fact that I've got groundwater coming in is going to be good to keep the water more fresh. Some thoughts to think about there yet. But other than that, the mechanism that I'm using to finish the work, I understand that pretty well. And at this point, I'm certain that I'm going to be able to achieve the goal. And that's a pretty big deal, because through a lot of the episodes you've seen here, I wasn't certain I was going to be able to achieve the goal. And I would just have to say that without the mini excavator, I don't think I could do it. I'm not saying the mini excavator is the ultimate tool. I'm not saying that I've used the ultimate tools. Obviously, a gazillion of you have commented, get a dozer, get a long reach excavator. I get it. But I do not think I could have accomplished the project with tractors, backhoes. Even if I had a year, I'm not sure I could have accomplished the project. There's been several items that I just don't think I could have accomplished, especially the backhoe not being able to get the spoils far enough from your dig site. I think that's the #1 issue that I just simply couldn't do without the excavator. Hope you guys are finding this series interesting. Stick around, we're showing you more and more of it as we go. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time on Tractor Time with Tim.
Therefore, Your Majesty, be pleased to accept my advice. Renounce your sins by doing what is right, and your wickedness by being kind to the oppressed. It may be that then your prosperity will continue.